And here we are again. This is Mike Lodge. I am the business advisor. I can't speak this morning. I have had my cup of coffee, so I should be able to speak quite well, but for some reason, it didn't start out quite right. Listen, I am a big supporter of free speech. I don't care if you're against me or for me. You have the right to have that free speech. As long as it's not violent against me or threatening against me, you have the right to say anything you want about me. I should have the right to talk about any subject that I feel is important. So over the last few days, I've been talking about the financial situation in the United States. I have talked about the Inflation Reduction Act and how it's going to do damage to the nation. I have talked about Joe Biden's student loan forgiveness thing, and I have been very vocal about it. And what I have been finding, though, is that I'm being censored. And there are certain organizations out there, and I'm not going to name them because you probably already know who they are already. But they have put my message so that I'm not being seen. I'm not being heard because of the viewpoints that I have suggested that America is in financial trouble because of certain issues that the president has done, the White House has done, the Congress has done, and these organizations out there don't like me talking about them. So we're being censored. And a lot of other people have found that they're being censored also. And we get to this point where, my gosh, we are trying to teach, we're trying to let people understand how government policies, bills, and everything else that gets passed through Congress and executive orders that get done by the president can harm my financial freedom and your financial freedom. And so I talk about that every single day. That's what this whole podcast is about, is a teaching apparatus. But the problem is when you've got people against you who are more powerful and more controlling of how your message is getting out, it becomes very difficult. I am a member of the podcast movement, and recently they had a exposition in Texas. A conservative individual by the name of Ben Shapiro. You all know him. He's very vocal out there. He always makes good arguments, and he's a conservative. So he showed up unannounced at a podcast movement expo. They put out they felt threatened. Now, why podcast movement would feel threatened when this is all about free speech really pisses me off. Because podcasting is about free speech. It's about you having a podcast if you want one. I have a podcast, and we talk about the things that are dear to us. So they put out an email apologizing for him being there. So if you have a conservative viewpoint, you can't be there. You can't participate in anything. So they put out an email. It goes, "Hi folks, we owe you an apology before sessions kick off for the day. Yesterday afternoon, Ben Shapiro briefly visited the PM22 Expo area near the Daily Wire booth. Though he was not registered or expected, we take full responsibility for the harm done by his presence." What was the harm done? And why is it that podcast movement decided, oh, he's a conservative, His voice is harmful. So we have to apologize for putting all the expo goers under this type of stress. How ridiculous is that? We don't have any freedom of speech anymore. As of today, I'm getting out of the podcast movement because I am so pissed off that they would take this stance that says, if you're a conservative, if you're Ben Shapiro, if you're Mike Lodge, who's a conservative business advocate, if you're there, you're a threat. How low class is this? So as of today, I'm out of it. I'm out of the podcast movement. Every day I get emails from them and everything. I'm going to have to tell them today, don't send me anymore because of your viewpoint against conservative speech. That's the problem with all of these organizations out there. They've all become woke. They've all become this anti-conservative, this anti-American type approach. Because freedom of speech is freedom of speech. That's a constitutional right that I and you have. But we have all of these organizations out there that have become woke. And so if you are somebody that they don't believe in, you're gone. They're going to apologize for creating a stressful, violent situation. It's a slap in the face of free speech is what it is. So I'm sorry. We who are trying to teach and trying to give our opinions out there, trying to let individuals understand, at least in my situation, because I talk about business every single day. I talk about what is happening and what's going to happen. We have talked about how the taxes that were implemented under the Inflation Reduction Act is going to affect you. Because once it gets over to the Internal Revenue Service, things happen. It gets interpreted a different way. So if we speak out about that, if we become a voice of looking at things differently and understanding the economic consequences of what's going on, we become the enemy. So a lot of the search engine organizations out there are beginning to take our voice and minimal. No, I'm not going to say that word. That's not right. Deleting us, putting us way down. Luckily, I was able to find a search engine out there called FreeSpoke. FreeSpoke gives the opportunity of doing, if you want to look at something, if you want to look at like free speech. If you look at free speech in Google or Yahoo or whatever search engine that you're using out there, if you go free speech, that free speech gets way down at the bottom because there's a whole bunch of ads, there's a whole bunch of leftist views on free speech, until finally it gets down to the actual description of free speech under the Constitution. It gets put way down there. If you look at Joe Biden, Facebook, or Zuckerberg, just came out yesterday and said, yeah, the algorithm is so that it puts it way down at the bottom because they felt that it wasn't necessary to be really heard about. So we have all of these things working against me as a podcaster. Me I'm not a big corporation. I make no money off of this podcast. I do it because I want to continue to teach and let you have another view of what's happening in the economy, which I feel is the correct view. Because you have all of these big organizations that are telling you that the world is great, but in actuality, that's not what you and I are experiencing. We're experiencing far different. But my view gets pushed way down at the bottom. So we don't have this free speech. Our free speech is manipulated. My podcasts are manipulated. They are not being seen up at the top only because of the topics that I talk about, or what Ben Shapiro talks about, or what any of the conservative podcasters are talking about. We get put way down at the bottom. I cannot believe that podcast movement, which is about this, supposed to be about this freedom of speech, this promoting a podcast, if a podcaster of a conservative view comes in, they begin apologizing that you felt uncomfortable. I'm tired of all this. I tell you I am. Will I stop my podcast? No, I'll continue on. To do my podcast, it costs me money, costs me time, costs me a thought process that I have to get up every morning and think about the subject that is haunting me that day, that I feel is important that you need to know. But my voice in my podcast is being shot down, and my numbers are not up there. Do you know that some days I might have, if I look at the statistics, I might have 8 to 10 listeners per day. Now, that's not anything compared to the hundreds of thousands that people who are not speaking about what I speak about get. And listen, I try to promote this as much as possible. I am on every single network that's out there. But again, my voice is being manipulated and my podcast is being manipulated because I'm speaking about the subjects that are dear to me. So my voice and my freedom of speech is being really corrupted. So what do we do about it? Well, I'm not going to give up. I might only have 8 people listening to me. That's fine. If I'm helping 8 people, then great. I'm helping 8 people. And if I'm only touching your lives just for a few minutes a day, because my podcasts are only 15 minutes. They're not very long. If I'm helping someone for that day, then great, I've done my job. And if I've let you know more about what's going on in the world, I've done my job. If I've given you some opportunities and some other views on where the economy stands today, I've done my job. Even if it's just 8 people. Even if it's just 10 people. I don't care. My goal is to educate. And my goal is to let you know what's going on in this big world of economic news every single day. I can only do my job the best that I can, and that is to do a podcast that comes from the heart. That's all I can do. If you want to have more access to my firm and myself, and you'd like to have a free 30-minute business advisory consultation or a mediation consultation, go to my website. It's at www.lodge.co.com. Again, that's www.lodge.co.com. By the way, if you want to sign up for FreeSpoke, FreeSpoke.com, go to it. It's free. It's not there. It gives you an unbiased search engine that you can look up subjects that you want to look up. It's not being manipulated. This is Mike Lodge. Everybody go out and have a great day. God bless. You're in my prayers every day. Today's going to be a good day. Bye-bye.